What's up, everybody? We are here with the Deeper Podcast. Brother Rusty is distracted a little bit this morning, so I'm taking this podcast over. He's got about 17 more Reese's to go.
I used all of my willpower for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'm about to say he hasn't been eating them out of the bucket.
Saving it for the children. The children got theirs last night. That's what I say at home. Like it's daddy's time now.
Halloween's totally over.
It's pastor's time. Pastor appreciation yesterday was amazing.
Yep. There you go.
You could have just given me a bunch of Reese's.
Yeah. Just don't look at the 2 Reese's that are beside me that I have hidden over here that I'm going to eat after the podcast.
I got all my trash here.
This is great decorations. We usually have like a Bible and stuff, but now we just have a bunch of Reese's Reese's packages.
We scrapped the Bible and we have a bunch of candy.
Man, yesterday was awesome. Very busy day.
Yeah.
Great morning service. Dude. Fall Fest. It was awesome.
Fall Festival was incredible.
Yeah, it really
Over 400
was.
people came through, which just was amazing. We've never counted before, so we were talking like, is that more or less than we've had? We don't really know, but we got a clicker, so now we'll be able to kind of track that. Not that it matters. If there'd have been 40 people, it's worth it, man, just to serve our community and get together as a church and do something. Those are always fun times,
Yeah.
So loved it. Just had a great time, man. All of it was great. Miss Casey is a rock star.
Mm-hmm.
We probably don't say it enough, and while she clearly is a front lines person because of the Sunday morning service, she's not seen as much because she is working with the kids. I think sometimes people don't understand how blessed we are to have her. So as we say, observed pastor appreciation yesterday. Obviously, theologically, we don't call Miss Casey Pastor Casey, but in terms of the ministry of Central Buna, we would not be able to do what we do without Casey, without Penny doing our women's ministry, without Mallory and Lauren with the pre-K and the nursery. We are just so absolutely blessed with them. And then also our support team in Miss Kathy and Miss Terry and Miss Hazel. So grateful for all of them. It was, man, a blessing for us. I can speak for you guys, I know, and just just a blessed by our church. And it feels like pastor appreciation here. I think some churches feel like they have to do a big pastor appreciation because they're not good at showing it throughout the year. But I feel like our church does a great job of showing us appreciation all the time and encouraging us. So, but even just the tangible gift yesterday, I know was a blessing to my family, and I know from talking to y'all, it was. So, for those of you who watch from our church, thank you so much for your very generous gift.
Shout out, Brother Roger.
Yeah, Brother Roger with the epic presentation. So
yeah, man, it was a great day yesterday. Fall Fest is always awesome, getting to see friends from the community and church family and stuff.
And obviously our purpose ministry portion
was awesome.
That was cool. For sure, there was more at that time than there was a year ago. That ministry is growing. And again, Miss Casey is a rock star. Yeah. She knocks it out of the park with all that. And a great group of folks here that just love them and enjoyed to be able to spend the time ministering to them. So just all in all, great. I mean, personally, I really enjoyed having our college students helped us do a booth. And when I say helped us, basically, Allie and Lily and Gavin did it. But really have enjoyed working with those young adults who are out of high school and seeing them not only come to church, but be active in church and finding ways to serve in the church. That's a lot of times doesn't happen for that age of student. So for them as really not students anymore, as young adults to kind of start finding their way in the church, they bless me. And they're friends, but also it's cool to be able to watch them growing up into the young men and women that are the church. Yeah. People always say like they're the future of the church. No, they are the church. Yep. And excited to see what God's going to do with them.
Yeah, it was a great day yesterday, man. But it started off great yesterday morning. It was an awesome finish, Matthew chapter 7.
Yeah, man. It's been a journey.
It really has. But it's been very insightful. Man, we've learned a ton over the past few weeks and months in the series, and I think it was a great end to it. I
didn't add up how many sermons it was. I should do that, but I do know we originally started in April. Yeah. Now, we took a pretty good break over the summer, maybe even 2 months off. I don't know exactly how long we took off, but man, it's for the last almost 4 or 5 months. Mm-hmm. It's kind of dominated our thinking. So I'm excited to move on, but at the same time, it was it was just beneficial. And I had 2 or 3 people yesterday who just said, "Man, extremely practical and relevant and helpful for my life over this season. So it's cool to see God work through the preaching and teaching of His Word.
Yeah, man, it was awesome. We talked about narrow gate, false prophets, and solid rock yesterday.
Yeah, really, the whole sermon was about really that last point of building your life on the rock.
Yeah.
And what we discover in the narrow way and the wide way is really those two foundations. There's two ways you can build your life. So classic passage, man, of entering the narrow gate versus the wide road. So you've got the narrow way and the wide way. Many go down the wide way, but its end is destruction. Only a few find the narrow gate and enter the narrow way, and in it find life. Really a concerning passage. And I just kind of said that yesterday. Does anybody else get nervous? And people were kind of like, yeah. Because I think the way we've read it in the past has not been super helpful. We read it and immediately start trying to analyze our lives and say, am I narrow enough? Am I on the right way? Am I living the way I should? Or am I doing enough to make my life narrow, when it's really not about your do's and your don'ts?
Yeah.
That was really what Jesus was seeking to correct in the Pharisees' teaching that enculturated that whole group of people. So Jesus is essentially saying to them, your law keeping is the wide way.
Yeah.
Trying to build yourself and build your religious resume is the wide way. And a lot of people are doing that, but they aren't actually walking with Jesus. And that's where the second point came in with the watch for false prophets, right? The idea is that you'll know them by their fruit. So is your, two wide paths we talked about that are dangerous. First, the wide path of worldliness. And the question I would just ask is, how's that working out for you? If that's the path you're on, most people, anxiety, depression, mental illness is at really markedly all-time highs right now.
Yep.
As worldliness has just swept our culture the last 2 decades. We're shocked that everything is going poorly with our culture, and individuals and families in our culture are just falling by the wayside because of this wide path. We're seeing literally what Jesus said, that in the end it leads to destruction.
Yeah.
But then this path of empty religion is also wide and also leads to destruction. So religious people, often when you look at their fruit, there either is none or it's bad fruit. And there's a whole slew of false teachers out there today that may not even know they're false teachers, but they're preaching a false gospel of works-based religion.
Yep.
That if you do these things, you can earn God's love. If you do the right things, say the right things, hit the right Christianese formula and make it happen, then you can earn God's love.
Yeah.
And they'd never word it that way, but that's essentially what they're getting at.
Yeah.
And it's a way that leads to destruction. You don't develop the fruit of the Spirit based on legalism. I've never seen that happen. I've never seen somebody like bare knuckle, like get down, grab a hold of, pick themselves up by their bootstraps. I'm screwing up all of these metaphors, but you know what I'm saying? Work themselves into faithful obedience.
Yeah.
Certainly there is discipline in the Christian life. We've talked about that many times, but it has to be grace-fueled discipline, not religious shame, guilt, pressure into doing those things, because all that produces is bad fruit, and it's unhealthy at the end of the day. But it's easier to do that, because Jesus said it pretty plainly. The narrow way is difficult, and few enter it. And I think the reason few enter it is because that idea of surrender is difficult.
Yeah, because we're commanded to do things, right? All throughout Scripture, we're commanded to do certain things. We're commanded to live a different lifestyle. Like we are called by Christ. This is kind of the language we always talk about. We're called to do these things, but we don't do it to check off a box, and we don't do it so that we can earn, like you're talking about. We do it because of the love that has been shown to us.
Yes.
And it's something that we ought to do. Like none of it, all the things that we ought to be doing or commanded to do will not measure up to what He's done for us already. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of, if you live in that mindset of, we don't do these things to check off a box and then get a card that says you've earned it, congratulations, you can get there. We do it because of the love He first showed us, and we do it because of the love that we now will have for Christ. And I think that changes the way you live your life if you actually have that in your mind as you're living your life and making decisions and doing certain things for Christ. Because, man, it's so easy to do the other way, like you're talking about. It's so easy to fall into that trap of, I got to do this because he's not going to love me.
Well, we talked about all the songs. Like it is finished that I added the line to. I was like, it is finished, except for all this other stuff in my life I got to get right.
Yeah.
Jesus paid it all, except for those other flaws that I got to get rid of on my own. Like we know the theology, but on a street level, we're not living as if Jesus really paid it all.
Yeah.
We're living as if he did his part, now I got to do my half.
Now it's my turn,
Right? Like, you gave half, now I got to give half. You can't get on the cross and pay for your sins.
Yeah.
You can't. Only Jesus and his work on the cross. So what we kind of came to a point in the sermon where we said, okay, when you look at harsh passages like this, because then the passage got even scarier, right? Mm-hmm. Where it said, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. Yeah. And people are kind of like, woof. And then it says, many will say, didn't I do a bunch of good things in your name? Wasn't I a believer? Wasn't I a good person? And I will say, depart from me. I never knew you. That's terrifying language in Scripture. So immediately when we look at this narrow path and we read that language, the wrong question to ask, I think, is the natural question that we ask if we're not careful is, am I doing enough? Have I, am I living this narrow life? Am I cutting out all the things I need to cut out? Am I being exactly who I need to be? Am I doing all these things? When we said all that's going to lead you to the wide path that actually leads to destruction. But the right question that we can ask is simply this: have I surrendered everything to Jesus? Have I surrendered everything to Jesus? So the call ultimately, and I use this line towards the end, was stop trying and start dying. You got to die to yourself.
It's a whole different lifestyle, man.
A whole different way to live. And that's what culminates in this beautiful sermon conclusion where Jesus absolutely crushed it with the conclusion about building your house on the solid rock or the shifting sand. Yeah. And man, we've all heard it, but it's so practical and so wise. And we kind of did a little comparison and contrast kind of vibe to it, because we said, okay, if you're looking at these two houses, they probably look the same. Yeah. We don't know, but
interiors
they
could
have been built. It could have been like cookie cutter houses, right? Like a subdivision where they just look exactly the same, built out of the same material, but one of them doesn't have a solid foundation. Yeah. Both houses look good, seem good, and here in Southeast Texas, I think it's easy for people to look good, sound good, get them a good study Bible, clean their life up on the outside, and make it look like they've got all their stuff together. But the other thing that happened to both houses is storms come. The fact of the matter is storms come even for those who are following Jesus. Yeah. Troubles come, trials come, difficulties come. But the key difference that makes all the difference in the world, that was the exact line I used yesterday, is the foundation. Yep. And the one who'd built their house on the rock stood, even though the winds pounded and everything else. The one that built their house on the sand collapsed, and Jesus said, and great was the fall of it. Mm-hmm. It fell, and it was an epic collapse. Yep. So this language, I think, is meant to shock us. Yeah. So the one who built it on the solid rock, right? Jesus said, the one who hears my words and does them. And the foolish one is the one who hears my words and doesn't do them. So the one who builds on the empty religion, if you build your life on trying to be good enough, if you build your life on just some good Southeast Texas culture, you are building your life on a foundation that will collapse when the storms come. But if you build your life on Jesus, on the rock, man, the storms are still going to come, but you will stand because the foundation is sure.
Yeah, man, it really is a whole different way to live. But I love the way you ended it. I think it's, for me personally, it's super easy to make it's not only easy, but it's kind of instinctively for me to make my life seem great and to make my life on the outside look like it should be to everybody else. But man, that struggle is always there on the inside. And if me battling with putting in effort and time to make the outside look good and not putting the effort and time to make the inside built on the solid rock. And the bad part is, I don't know about you guys or I don't know about you, but for me, I can live for a good while building up the outside, and it could last a pretty good while. Like, it really can. Like, it can last a good while and pretty much just faking it, right? Yeah. Like, I can fake it for a pretty good while, a long time. But eventually, when that happens, when that crash comes, like you said, it is a hard collapse. Yeah. And there's no reason for us to live that way. Like, there's no reason for us to put ourselves through that because we have the opportunity just right there in front of us to put our life on the solid rock of the Lord. But man, the crash is hard.
It's what we're going to talk about the next 2 or 3 weeks in a series where we're going to talk about faith, is that inner life is actually the most real part of you. And yet it's the most neglected part of us.
Yep.
So we work on the seen instead of the unseen.
The unseen, yeah.
And the unseen is actually a greater reality than the seen.
Yeah.
How you're fronting and faking is really what everyone sees, including you.
Yeah.
But that unseen is really where faith is found, according to Hebrews 11, which we'll talk about Sunday. So living for this unseen reality that then changes the outside. It's a totally different way to live.
Exactly. It changes, exactly. Because I think that's what a lot of people, when they come
inside
to the Christian
out,
faith.
right?
Yeah.
Do you remember the classic Hillsong Jam?
Yep.
From the inside out. I've always loved it because that
really
is
true.
The heart, is that Jesus transforms the heart and then the outside changes. And most of us try to do the opposite way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a natural thing too. Like when your faith is being built on the solid rock and you're growing and you're learning, not only are you growing and learning, you're making decisions that are following Christ. Like you're making time for Him. You're doing these things. Man, that outside growth, that outside thing that the Lord is doing inside of you is going to come out naturally. It's going to flow out of you, and people are going to actually see that and go, oh man, what is different about that person? There's something going on in their life, right? But it's because the inside of us is being completely changed into something. But dude, we spend so much time, money, and effort on making the outside look pretty when it's just going to shatter, man.
It's wild, and I think about just like practical analogies, all right? So can we just talk, this is the Deeper Podcast, so we can just kind of have some cash conversation about this kind of stuff. Like the way we dress at the office during the week, right? We all have different roles here, obviously. You're the youth guy. Youth guy gets away with more casual dress.
This is the nicest thing I've worn.
Yeah, you look good today. This was like Sunday best for you, so you're killing it.
It's better than what I wore yesterday.
Yeah, it might be, yeah. But like Caleb, I know, has stepped up his dress game, and even I probably have. Now, of course, summer always gets a little wild, right? During summer, we're wearing shorts and a T-shirt because we're doing shorts and T-shirt things. You never know when you're going to maybe playing basketball with kids 1 minute and counseling someone the next hour, so I get it. But what I think this growth reflects in us as we've kind of grown up some, it's not like we just started dressing nicer and that changed the game for us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like, well, Caleb's wearing a polo now, so he's a serious guy. That's not really what it is. But there is a mental shift that has happened for him. He would say that, I think, right, Pastor Caleb? He would say, like, there's a mental shift where for him it was like, hey, I want to kind of get in this. So it was a kind of an inward change that is reflected in what he wears. Now, again, those of you listening to this, you may come, tomorrow, and tomorrow we're going to be hauling junk in there, so we'll probably be dressed a little more casual. So it doesn't, at the end of the day, the dress doesn't make the man, but it can be a reflection. So I would say, like what you're talking about, certainly there should be some outward changes in our lives, right? And the Sermon on the Mount was full of calls, like you said. There 100%. Are commands and calls for us, but those changes come not because we're trying to change those things so our heart can be right. Those things change from a healthy heart. So the growth comes not as a forced effort, but from letting the Lord work in us from this place of the unseen inner life that's being built day after day.
We've got to fully surrender to Him to let that happen. So, but yeah, man, I'm excited for Hebrews.
Hard to do. We're just going to do a 2 or 3 week series. Don't even really have a title yet, but honestly, I'm very excited about Sunday morning. Just one verse we're going to look at, really, and we'll reference a little bit more, but just an incredible thought that I think will revolutionize the way we think about our lives, and then we'll have a couple more weeks of thinking about that as we lead up to the holidays.
It's going to be good, man. It's about to get busy.
Dude, let's go.
But I'm excited.
I'm down.
Yeah, it's almost November.
That's
crazy.
Baptism Sunday, November 17th. Got a lot of people signed up already, and it's going to be a fun day. Man, just God's doing lots of cool things. Can't wait to be part of it and make it happen.
Hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. We'll see you guys next Monday. Join us this Wednesday, join us this Sunday, and then we'll talk to you guys next Monday.
If you need something, I'll be over here eating Reese's.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.